Hello and welcome to Food Systems, a podcast from the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, where we discuss new ideas that can shape a sustainable food system from farm to fork, from policy to consumers, and everything in between. I'm your host, Robert de Graaf, and you can find us on Twitter at Forum for Ag. These episodes will be available every other week on all major podcast platforms. Before we get started, we'd like to say a quick thank you to the FFA founding partners, the European Landowners Organization and Syngenta, as well as the FFA strategic partners, Cargill, the Nature Conservancy, Rabobank, Thought for Food, and the World Wildlife Fund. Please enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Food Systems. Today is a little bit different. In the run-up to the FFA 2021, I thought we'd give our listeners a peek behind the scenes. So today we're talking to Caroline Mahr van Everdingen. She's been my colleague for many years and is the program leader for the Forum for the Future of Agriculture, which means she handles the overall coordination between the strategy and the operational parts of the FFA. So this is your chance to get a peek in the kitchen of what it's like to organize an event like this. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Robert, it's a pleasure talking to you.
I just want to begin for our listeners, just what is your own history with the FFA and when did you start working on it?
Right, so FFA started in my life in 2010 when I joined the European Landowners Organization. Very quickly then I was brought to organize the next edition, so March 2011, together with the Rice Foundation colleagues and Syngenta, so the co-founders of FFA.
You were there in 2010. What was it like in 2010? What was the scope? What was it like?
In 2010, it was so the second year or third year for FFA, and it was the first time that the Forum for the Future of Agriculture was taken into the square, so one of the largest venues in Brussels. That meant that the outreach of this event and the scope, as well as the speakers invited, were already really increasing, and the level of speakers was really high, as well as the attendance. It was very impressive for me to see how the organizers were building this event together and trying again here to merge the agriculture world and the environmental world for more discussion and more dialogue to move the Forum for the Future of Agriculture forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same feeling that I had when I joined the FFA a couple of years after you. And sort of in that vein, over the years, I mean, the FFA is not what it used to be. How has it changed?
Initially, the discussion was focusing really on European level, European policy, way more than global. And now throughout the years, and I think this happened also when there was a change in chairmanship, we moved much more towards trying to understand the global picture of agriculture and the food system. So this is certainly what I see a change and the major change for FFA since its beginning.
But there's always a tension because we do want to maintain, most of our audience is after all European. So how do we make sure that it still has that European attitude or flavor, maybe is the best word for it?
Well, that is actually the way we are building up the program and the agenda. It's simply by looking at what is happening at the global level, at the global discussion of the food system and global policy. So more looking at international organizations, then moving back to European policy, understanding how the European institutions are trying to adapt the food system to today's challenges. And then we like to still, and most importantly, look down to the national or a local level. What are the initiatives that are being taken by sometimes civil society or individuals to improve the food systems? And I think by keeping this kind of mix between those three levels, this is, I think, how the FFA can ensure to have a more holistic approach to understanding better the future of the food.
I just wanted to go briefly back to the growth of the FFA. Obviously, last year we had to cancel the main event due to the outbreak of the corona pandemic. I wonder if you could talk a little bit to our listeners about what that was like to because it was cancelled, I think, if I remember correctly, only 2 weeks before the event was supposed to take place. What is it like to have to reshape a whole event quite quickly?
That's correct. The decision was taken to cancel the event literally 15 days before it was supposed to happen. I think this was the major decision for all of the parties involved, because it's a lot at stake, and for the team in particular there has been hours and hours of work put in this to set it up. It was, first of all, it was really disappointing that we had to cancel it. But afterwards we saw many new opportunities to reshape the agenda and reshape the event as such. And the team was brilliant in getting informed on how to organize virtual events. And that is where the way we took to move forward, just with our times and not to stay behind.
So I want to move back to the content side of things. So this year the main theme is going to be food system renewal for FFA 2021. How do you pick the big sort of theme, the big key theme, and then some of the subtopics?
As you know, we have a board with the official partners of FFA. We meet up every year just before we start the launch of the event, let's say, or before we start launching the organization of the event, just before the end of the summer. And that's when we have a strategic discussion. So it's a kind of brainstorming session together with the partners to understand, okay, what are their core challenges at the moment? Where do they see priority for moving with the food system onwards? And then we have a kind of general discussion, again here, bringing in always, okay, what's happening at the global level and what's happening in Europe. And that is how then we identify the key theme and the topic. Then the FFA team takes it back into the office, brainstorms further in order to identify and define better or more specifically what we want to discuss and what are the topics we should really focus on. And then we bring it back to the strategic partners. They approve it, and we move on in setting up.
So what are some of the major sub-themes that are going to be on offer during, I'm going to say, the year of FFA 2021, because it is much more than just the conference?
Right. We are looking for 2021 when we're discussing food system renewal. It's really about understanding, once again, and it's more than understanding, it's really, again, pushing the stakeholders of the food system and the food value chain to shift towards implementation of sustainability at their own level. And that's sustainability on short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And when we say stakeholders along the food value chain, it means really ensuring that each of the parties involved make this effort in moving towards a more sustainable food system. That means that we have identified first again at political level we want to engage the discussion with the leaders, today's leaders, whether it's at the FAO level, UN level, European institution level, even like national level of member states. That means ministers or members of the parliament. We are trying to understand how do they pick up their leadership in really promising and ensuring that they will act for a more sustainable food system. Then we take it down to the discussion between climate change and agriculture from an industry side, really seeing how is the industry trying to really implement some concrete measures that will allow a more sustainable practices. And then we always make sure that when we have a discussion, we bring in a diverse and balanced views to challenge each other as well. So that is why we always invite civil society, scientists, industry, and most importantly then also again here the political world to sit down together in a panel and discuss a certain issue. So climate change and agriculture is one of the issues we want to discuss. Second of all, we will look at the question of healthy diets. So it's really shifting the diets towards that are good for human health, but also good for the planet or good for the environment. The question of diet and this chain from farm to fork is really at the heart of the interest of a large majority of population, I think. And so we are taking it back again on stage, at least on the 23rd of March this year. And we will again continue discussing it during the year.
Okay, so this is an interesting question to me, because you've been doing this now for more than 10 years. I've been on around about 8 years. The forum's always had as its mission to combine environmental and agricultural security and food security. In your own experience, is the food system more sustainable than it was 10 years ago? Because it's sometimes, to me, it seems that we're just having the same discussions over and over and over again.
In my personal opinion is yes. I have the feeling that the food system has moved forward towards more sustainability, or at least integrating the message of sustainability. I find that no matter at what level you are talking, everybody is aware of the challenges, and that there is a shift that has to happen. And whether you look at supermarkets, if you look retailers, if you look again here more the farmers themselves, they are really looking, I think, in a different way at their landscape, their soils, and I feel that there's really something that wants to happen. Somehow, what I do see, however, is that everybody is waiting for the other one to do the first step. I hope only that now, with the pressure we have, especially related to climate change, I do feel that things will move a bit faster, because there's also much more general awareness from the younger generations as to how climate change is affecting us also in our daily life.
I wanted to go back a little bit to sort of the practical side. So, of course, it's different now that everything's digital, but I wanted to sort of ask you, what's it like to run the FFA main stage on the day itself? And let's try to focus on a non-digital, on the before days when it was all in person.
In-person event, right? I must admit, I have been doing this now for such a long time, and usually the weekend prior to the event, I feel like, all right, here are the keys of the event, go ahead, and I stay home. I usually don't feel like attending the event as such on the day same, because I feel that everything has been achieved. Nevertheless, on the day same, what happens is that we have a very precise schedule, almost minute per minute, of what is going to happen, where, whether it's at the location as such, or whether when it is picking up the speakers from their hotel to bringing them to the venue. And everybody in the team, and on that day we have a really, really big team, has a personal, so individualized schedule, and telling them exactly how they should run the show. Furthermore, we are connected either by phone or by headsets to ensure that we can communicate with each other at any moment of the day. Behind the scene, so for me the biggest moment where my heart is beating really fast is when I have to give the go to the technical team to say, now we start. And this is then the moment when the moderators get on stage. It is always very exciting to, first of all, get to meet the speakers, bring them backstage, make sure they are also ready with their microphones, and then ask them to come up on stage. Ensuring every time you are 5 minutes ahead of time to ensure that everything is ready before moving on to the next session, to the next panel, to the next break. And it is usually a show that starts at 9 in the morning and finishes at 5:30 in the afternoon. And between 9 and 5:30, I am really happy when I can sit down for 5 minutes to grab a sandwich or drink a bit of water.
And it's really strange because in the square, for our listeners, just off the main stage, there's this little square, tiny little room where we get all the speakers ready. And from 90% of your day, you're stuck in that small room, sometimes running out to greet the speaker. But you're fully reliant on others to take the speakers from the hotel to this tiny little room. And essentially, I don't know what your experience was, but I didn't get much of anything of the content or what was said on stage.
Nothing at all. I have honestly always been obliged to listen to the events after they were finished, or the 2 times I have been listening to them, it was when I was on maternity leave. And then I was happy to be sitting at home and watching online. No, the second thing is, it is true, you don't get much of what's happening on stage and the discussion, but you do get the atmosphere backstage and this connection between the technical teams, the speakers also, and you as a person who is a bit of at the front line and the interaction and also representing the whole FFA team. I felt always like an FFA ambassador. There you, I mean, of course it's filled with pride, but also I always felt the need of ensuring that I show that I am relaxed, showing that I feel confident, and staying polite and staying friendly, even if you have had a lot of pressure on your shoulders to ensure that the show is running. And this is a kind of, for me, was always an interesting situation to be in. And happy that it was happening once a year and it was over again.
I wanted to ask a question about the speakers, because I think more than a few of our listeners will have organized events themselves, or in the organizations that run these, not maybe of this scale, but they run public events. The FFA's had some really big speakers, Queen Noor of Jordan, Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General, come to mind. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process. What's it like getting a speaker of that world-class level?
For the FFA community and for the FFA team and organizers, when we're trying to reach out to those speakers, first of all, it is ensuring that there is a coherency in between the message that we are trying to convey, which is bringing environment and agriculture closer together for a dialogue, and the message that those high-level speakers are conveying. It really comes very much down to ensuring the arguments that we are using for asking them to speak at the event are the right ones. And also the challenge is that within one letter of maybe 1.5 pages, you are concise enough to explain what FFA is all about, showing also then that we take it really seriously, and all involved take really seriously the discussion about moving forwards and bringing agriculture, bridging agriculture and environment, and ensuring that when they come on stage, that they also help the FFA community and organizers to push the discussion a bit further. So it's always difficult to reach out to those high-level speakers. Sometimes it happens via official agencies, like speakers agencies, and but most of the time it really happens via the network. So it means that FFA organizers need to be well connected, and to be very honest, very often it just happens by sending out an official invitation. So it means by convincing the speaker or his assistant or his representative that he or she should attend the FFA and be part of this discussion, because if they really want to act, then that's the right place for discussing it. So it's really about coming down again to your question, is really for me, reaching out to those high-level speakers means ensuring that you have a really quality and strong and convincing invitation letter.
We're going to move towards wrapping up the podcast, but I wanted to ask one more question, because you touched on digital already. So what's it like now with Corona and everything? We're not able to do this in person. What has it been like to move the FFA and the way we do things into an online space, into a streaming space?
First of all, I think the biggest challenge was that FFA, right, it was a place, and especially at the square, the venue of the event in Brussels usually, it was really about the networking area. Replicating this networking space virtually, I think, was for us the biggest challenge. Luckily, since March 2020, the technical community has been also developing, and so they brought up and then it created a lot of virtual platforms, and this is exactly what we are going to use for FFA 2021. It's a virtual platform with virtual exhibition areas, networking areas, and so we really look forward for our audience to join and speak to each other virtually. And second of all is, again, adapting the sessions and the panel discussions to something that can be watchable online. That means we are moving away from I would say, call it a theater show to really more of a TV show. And this is exactly the spirit we have moved FFA in, saying that we want to offer to our audience a TV show, something that they can watch and that they feel like, okay, really spending 40 minutes, 50 minutes of their daily time to connect and watch, because they believe that they shouldn't miss it. And most importantly, making sure that they can also ask questions. So we really invite the audience to, on the day same of the events, tune in live, raise your questions to speakers, and the team is ready behind the screens to take those questions and ensure that the moderators can interact as much as possible with the audience and with the speakers.
Okay, well, we're coming up to the end of the podcast, and I will ask you what I have asked of everybody who's come on so far, given also your own quite extensive experience, not least now living on a farm yourself. If you could give like one idea or one policy suggestion that you think will create a more sustainable food system, what would it be?
I would certainly encourage policymakers to ensure that they really stay connected with farmers on the ground and the community that's really doing the work on the ground, living in the rural areas. That's where things are happening more than in offices, I believe. If we want to create a proper regulation that can be applied, then I would really encourage policymakers to engage the discussion much further and much stronger with local communities. So that would be probably my answer to your question.
I think that's a very good answer, and genuinely something that I would find very important as well. Caroline Mahr van Everdingen, thank you so much for giving everybody a look behind the scenes of FFA 2021 and before.
It's my pleasure, Robert.
You've been listening to an episode of Food Systems, a podcast brought to you by the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. Look for us in 2 weeks when we release our new episode. And in the meantime, please don't forget to subscribe on your podcast app, as well as on Twitter @ForumFag, for updates on this podcast, news, as well as FFA events. Please check out our website, www.forumforagriculture.com, for more great content. Thank you for listening and enjoy your day.